Hello and welcome to the CBV podcast.
Hello and welcome. My name is Cloud, and today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the movie Willy's Wonderland. Now, I have seen a lot of people compare this movie to the Five Nights at Freddy's game. I can't speak on that because, I've never been a Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I've never played the games. I have no knowledge of it. All I know is the similarity is that they both feature killer animatronics. So I can't really talk on that. And also, I don't think it's fair to compare this film to Five Nights at Freddy's because, there's a lot of things in life that are very similar. You've got McDonald's and Burger King, they're similar. Star Wars and Star Trek, you've got Marvel and DC. There's always going to be people making comparisons and saying which one's better than the other. But, why can't we just enjoy both? So I just want to put it out there right now that I'm not going to be spending the review in any way comparing the movie to the game, because I think that's unfair to the film. Just because two things are similar doesn't mean they can't be executed very differently. But anyway, regardless, the idea of a horror movie that focuses on killer animatronics really wasn't something that struck me as exciting on paper, but when I heard that Nicolas Cage was going to star in the movie, I quickly became fully on board to see what they could do with this concept, especially with an actor like Nicolas Cage. If he feels like someone who would fit very well in this kind of movie. But if for some reason you have no idea what Willy's Wonderland is, then let me quickly explain the synopsis of this film. So Willy's Wonderland stars Nicolas Cage as a silent drifter who is basically tricked into spending the night cleaning an abandoned kids attraction called Willy's Wonderland. He's doing this in order to pay for his car to be fixed so that he can continue his journey and leave the town. But, throughout his night of cleaning, Cage finds himself fighting for survival against the attraction's killer animatronics. Now, if the idea of Nicolas Cage fighting animatronic characters doesn't spark your excitement, then this movie really isn't for you, because that is the selling point of the film. This is a pure, fun, low-budget popcorn B-movie, and it delivers on exactly what it promises in the trailer. So, it's very self-aware, and it knows exactly what it's doing. Now, does that mean that the movie is perfect? No, of course not. No movie is perfect. So, I am going to be fair and talk about what worked for me and what didn't work for me. But before I do that, can we just take a moment to appreciate the marketing in the lead up to the movie? First we got a nice 15-second teaser trailer back in October letting us know that the film is coming out and just giving us a taste of what we can expect to see. I thought it was a really well done teaser trailer that actually teased us. I feel like studios have kind of forgotten what a teaser is because, most of them these days are just as long as the official trailer, which to me kind of loses the whole purpose of it being a teaser trailer. So it was just nice to see one that actually teased us. Later on, we then got to see a bunch of fun character posters that, just gave us an idea of all the different animatronics we would see Nicolas Cage fight and kind of give us more of an idea of the tone with the quirky songs used in some of the motion posters. And then finally, we got the official full-length trailer, which was all I needed, and I'm so happy that this was the only official trailer they released. I just hate it when studios release multiple trailers in the lead up to a film, because by that point I feel like I've seen too much when the film's actually released. I mean, these days it feels like films are advertised a year in advance and you get free full trailers, and yeah, it just gets a bit too much. So this was a breath of fresh air to simply get a teaser trailer, a bunch of fun character posters, and a full trailer. So I just want to say well done to the marketing team behind this. I thought it was perfect. Although, to be fair, the fan base for this film has been incredible in hyping up the film on social media such as Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I've seen some incredible videos and artwork on there, and it really shows the level of passion and excitement that you guys have for this movie. The writer and creator of Willy's Wonderland, Gio Parsons, he's been very generous with his time trying to interact with fans by liking and retweeting their posts on social media. So, hats off to you, Gio, because it really does show how grateful he is for everyone's support. I've just never seen a relationship between a creator and their fans like this before, and it was such an awesome thing to witness in the lead up to the film. So I'll leave a link to his Twitter account in the description below so you can follow him and, show him some support, especially if you enjoyed the movie. Also, I should say that I actually would never have heard of the existence of Willy's Wonderland as early as I did if it wasn't for a YouTuber called 3C Films reporting in all the news and updates for it. I know he's one of the big names on the internet that has been helping create buzz for the film, so I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below because he makes some very fun content and, he deserves some recognition as well. Okay, enough about the lead up, let's finally talk about the film itself. I have a lot to discuss and I will be talking about spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film, I would just say that I do think it's a really fun time if you're watching it to see Nicolas Cage fight animatronics. It really is just a fun B-movie that's self-aware, and you really need to leave your logical thinking behind at times because there isn't a lot of depth to this film at all, and there are elements that are really left up to kind of interpretation. So if you're expecting this to have a lot of logic and character development, then this probably isn't the movie for you. Anyone who loved this film like myself, I imagine just wanted to have a good time and see Nicolas Cage fight some killer animatronics. So, if you're one of those people who just want to have a fun time watching that, go out, check it out, come back and listen to my spoiler talk. Okay, I'm now going to go into full spoilers, so if you are still listening, I'm assuming you have seen the film and therefore will understand everything I'm about to talk about. I want to end this review on a high note because it is such a fun time, so I will firstly talk about some of the minor things that I didn't like about the film just before I start praising the hell out of it, because I have to be honest with myself and just talk about some of the things that didn't quite work for me. Firstly, the editing was overall decent, but at times it was a little off in certain areas, particularly in the opening. And take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because these are very small things that I noticed as someone who spends, too much time editing when they're not working. For example, I noticed a little issue with the sound editing, but, only for the opening scene where we would see a flashback of two employees who are later revealed to be Liv's parents. They're being hunted down and killed in Willy's Wonderland. It's a perfect setup, but it seemed like there were sound effects missing where we should have maybe heard more noises coming from the animatronics, whether that's through their cartoony voices or the sounds of their mechanical movements. It felt like we were hearing too much of the reactions from the parents, so I felt like this aspect of the scene felt a little lacking in how they were trying to convey what was attacking them. I think I just found it to be noticeable because this opening scene was purposely hiding the animatronics to create a level of mystery as to what was killing the parents. And I do love that approach, but if we're not going to see Willy and the gang, then I need to hear more creepy sounds from them in order to feel like there is actually a threat hunting these people down. This wasn't a huge issue for me, because as I said, it is only occurring in that opening scene, but it did catch my attention. However, the one aspect of the editing I do think deserves some criticism though is kind of the overuse of crossfades. This movie uses crossfades quite a bit. If you don't know what I mean when I say crossfades, it's when one shot of a film fades into the next shot of a film. So at one point you will see the two shots overlap. Now don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic uses of it in this film, but there are some moments that just seemed used for the sake of it. The best use of the crossfade, the best use of the crossfade, I think, is when the janitor is about to battle Willy. There's a great shot of him staring right into the camera with an overlapping crossfade of confetti falling everywhere. It was just a beautiful moment of imagery, and I wished the crossfades were used more to that level, but it did seem like they were kind of thrown in there a lot of the time to make the editing seem a little more stylish than it really needed to be. Other than those few editing critiques I made, I think the editing was decent and overall good, and I also did love the sped up montage of the janitor actually cleaning rooms such as the toilets. That use of editing really does allow us to see how much thorough cleaning he really achieved in the night, so that was an awesome touch as well. Now, my next criticism with the film was some of the small character decisions made by some of the teenagers. I have some mixed thoughts with the two scenes I'm about to mention, because on the one hand, they're pretty much there just to set up the kills, but on the other hand, they could have been improved just with a small tweak to the writing. For example, when the teenage couple decide to have sex in the Super Happy Fun Room, it didn't really make any sense for them to do that, because they know that the Willy's Wonderland animatronics are alive and they will kill you. But that didn't bother me hugely, as it was pretty funny that they decided to have sex in a room called the Super Happy Fun Room. And I get it was, I do understand that it was making fun of the cliche of teenagers getting killed after having sex in horror movies. But I just wish the film had written it in a way where they only decided to have sex because they were one of the few teenagers in the group who didn't believe the animatronics were alive. That would have made more sense to me, and it still would have been able to make fun of the cliche. Another example of some of the decisions I wasn't really too keen on was when one of the teenagers trusted that Cammy Chameleon was a good person who just wanted to move on into the afterlife. It's not so much that I didn't like the idea of that scene, because it was starting to get interesting. It was that it either wasn't played up enough for us to almost believe her, or more so that he just decided to trust her after 30 seconds of her telling him she was good. It was just kind of unbelievable that he would allow himself to be found that quickly, particularly because he seemed to be the most concerned about staying alive. But again, it's not a big deal, because I did just want to see Cammy kill him, and it did lead to the same result, so I can't complain massively. And, to be fair, there are very subtle hints that he is kind of the least intelligent in the group, as he tries to, kick down a door that was unlocked the whole time. He tried to look for keys to handcuffs in the fridge of all places, and he blindly follows Liv wherever she goes because he's infatuated with her. So, maybe if they had sprinkled in some more moments like that, where he demonstrates his lack of intelligence, maybe I could have bought into it more. Apart from that, though, I think the script was good, simple, fun, and it did exactly what it needed to do. I have a lot more praise about the script, but I just want to get into my final few criticisms of the film. And one of them is the amount of shaky cam used in the fight scenes. I really wanted to see more clear action so that I could appreciate the imagery of the ridiculous fights. And although the fight scenes themselves were still fun as hell, I just wish less shaky cam was used at times, because it did make me feel a little dizzy to a certain point. I can understand that maybe the low budget might have been the reason that we got a lot of close-ups and shaky cam during the fights to make it, more believable and adrenaline fueled. But to me, it was overused a bit too much. My only suggestion of improvement for that would have been just to have a few extra long shots, or even if it was close-ups, just make them a bit more steady so we can focus on what we're seeing. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about the shaky cam. Okay, now rest assured, I'm going to talk about my final negative point, and to me, this is the only point that I don't feel in any way is a nitpick. I have seen Willy's Wonderland 3 nights in a row now, while renting the movie, and I enjoyed it more each time. So, I had such a good time with it that I could easily overlook my previous negative points, but there's one thing I could not ignore, and I wish they hadn't done it, as it did affect my viewing experience. But thank God that this only occurs in one scene in the entire film. But it was that extreme use of flashing lights in the scene where the nerdy teenager is getting killed by Siren Sarah and Tito Turtle. In this scene, because of the flashing lights, I could just barely see what I was watching, and it really kind of made it hard for me to keep my eyes on the screen, because the flashing was actually making my eyes sort of ache. It was pretty extreme lighting for me, which is such a shame, because from what I could make out, Siren Sarah was looking very creepy in it, and I wanted to see the kill more clearly. But, out of all the things that I wish wasn't in the movie, it would be the use of lighting in that specific scene. I think the only way that I could personally improve my viewing experience of that scene is to either watch it with the light on, or watch it on a small screen like my phone. I'm not against flickering lights, but I think it needs to be used in moderation so that people aren't affected by it in their viewing experience. But yeah, okay, I'm officially done with all my negatives on the film. So let's now talk about all the things that I really enjoyed. And let's praise the hell out of this movie. First of all, I loved watching the janitor. It may sound ridiculous, but he is now one of my favourite movie characters of all time. I love that Nicolas Cage did something completely different and took on a non-speaking role. He doesn't speak one line of dialogue in this film, and that's something I've just never seen from him before. So, this means that he has to rely purely on his physical performance the entire time. I mean, he still screams and rages out in the fights, but he doesn't say one single word. He just, he just kind of grunts from time to time. At first, I was thinking, is this going to be too silly for him not to speak for an entire film? But it really does manage to work well, especially for the humour and tone of the movie. He is an element of the film that is smartly left up to interpretation, as the movie never explains or confirms, who he is, what his backstory is, or where he came from. And I like that the janitor is a silent character, and that the movie never explains who he is, because that allows us as an audience to fill in the gaps about who we think he is. Because it doesn't matter who he is. The movie isn't about that. It's about watching Nicolas Cage fight evil animatronics. And, that's not to say that the movie maybe doesn't sprinkle in any potential clues about who he might be, because by the end of the movie we do learn that he's handy to have by your side in a fight. When he makes a deal, he sticks by it no matter what. And there's even some dog tags you can see hanging in his car when he's driving. So, maybe there's a possibility that he's ex-military and maybe he's experienced some trauma from that, which could explain why he never speaks. And the brilliant thing is that it's never confirmed, so you can interpret his character however you like. His character also brings this classic Western feel of the man with no name type of character passing through town. I mean, at one point we hear Siren Sarah refer to him as a cowboy, and there's another moment where he actually lassos Cammy, and even the music playing as he drives feels a lot like a score from a Western. So it was just so cool to see them make little nods to show how much the janitor does feel like a character inspired by the Western genre. The janitor also seems to be kind of addicted to this fictional drink called Punch, as we see him drinking it when he travels, and every time that he's taking a break from cleaning Willy's Wonderland. It's another thing that could be interpreted as either a simple drink that he just enjoys, or it could be a drink that maybe fuels him throughout the night and is able to give him the strength and energy to keep fighting. I mean, it is called Punch, so it would be on the nose. And the other thing that you could look further into is his love of a pinball machine in Willy's Wonderland. He's always playing on it on his breaks, but he seems to have some kind of connection with it. I mean, when it first catches his eye, it's almost like he kind of recognizes that exact machine. And even when he touches the pinball machine for the first time or plays on it, it seems like he's very familiar with that exact machine, like he's played it in the past before. And who knows, maybe there's a theory that because, he recognizes it because maybe he's visited Willy's Wonderland before in the past, or, maybe he had a family that went there who were killed off, and this is actually him returning, knowing exactly what he's getting into, so he can kill these creatures for revenge. But on the other hand, maybe it's simply that he loves pinball, as he almost seems to play it very passionately. Kind of like it's sort of his love interest in the movie, because when he plays this pinball machine, it's kind of got this sort of sexual undertone to it. Like, it's sort of like he's metaphorically making love of a person, but he's just passionately playing a pinball machine. So I guess in that respect, you could consider the pinball machine to be his sort of his love interest. It was definitely something that you would expect from a Nicolas Cage performance, and he even does a little dance as he's trying to get the high score. And, all these things I'm mentioning, it's just a huge aspect of the film that I love. It's just a simple survival story, but it's presented as if there's different ways of interpreting the small details, and I think that's fantastic to do that. That's my thoughts on on the janitor. So I want to praise the animatronics now. This is the evil, of course, that the janitor has to fight against throughout the movie. And I think they did such a fantastic job making these characters feel memorable and unique. They all have catchy names, quirky voices, different designs, and they're all very memorable. And, you know, considering that these characters are basically, you know, people in costumes and puppeteers, they do a pretty good job at moving like robots. And I think what helps with that is the choreography of the actors, the sound design, and the awesome mechanical mouths and eyes that move and blink. And, you know, most of all, the fact that these are practical effects. You know, there's nothing better than seeing an effect done practically if it can be done practically. And they do use CGI, but it's only used when it's needed to complement the effects, such as Cammy Chameleon's tongue attack or Siren Sarah crawling up the walls. It's used in small doses, but it really does add to the creepy nature of these things, especially with the fact that they're practical effects. So the CGI isn't in it, but it's used in small doses. The movie also does a good job never overusing an animatronic or making them annoying, and that's because the script only allows the janitor to really fight them mostly one at a time. And yeah, maybe it would make more sense for them to all attack Nicolas Cage at the same time to ensure he dies, but, you know, it's things like that. You've got to turn your brain off once in a while to those kind of things, because, you know, if it did it that logically, we wouldn't have a movie, because the movie would be over very quickly. So, you know, that when I say, you know, leave your logic at the door, it's just for these small moments like that you just need to accept that's the way it is so we can have the movie. But, you know, as I say, you know, they don't overuse the animatronics at all. They know exactly how much time to give each character, and that goes for the cast as well, like the sheriff and the teenagers. They know exactly how long to have these characters on screen. I never felt that I was seeing a character for too long. Even the characters that I didn't find necessarily interesting, which is some of the teenagers, they went on screen for too long. So, you know, like, it didn't bother me. Every character had a perfect amount of time on screen. Let me just quickly, actually, on that thought, move on to the cast. The performances. Obviously, Nicolas Cage was the most entertaining part of the film, but the rest of the cast actually did a good job portraying the roles they needed that the movie needed. I love the personality and the character of the sheriff, the owner of Willy's Wonderland, the mechanic, and even Liv, who is sort of the leader of the teenagers, who was a previous survivor of Willy's Wonderland. I think they all created very memorable and entertaining characters, and they did a good job considering how cheesy the material was that they were working with. And I'm not saying that in the bad way. I love cheesy material, but they never felt like they were overacting. They all played it just right so that the actors complemented the script and the script was able to complement the actors. So I thought it was just done perfectly. I would say that the only actors I felt were a little underwhelming in their portrayals were probably the rest of the teenagers. And maybe that's to do with the smaller screen time. And they did once in a while have a few moments to shine, but for the most part, they weren't that interesting, and that's just mainly because they're playing stereotypes that we've seen in other horror movies for years. And to me, that was okay, because I just wanted to have fun watching them get killed one by one, and I got that, so I thought it was still good. The set designs. The set designs were incredible. I was so happy to see that Willy's Wonderland felt like an attraction with all the rooms and areas that the fights and action takes place in, you know, such as the main room, the super happy fun room, the fairy tale looking forest room, the men's toilets, even the vents, and seeing, you know, Nicolas Cage take his breaks in the kitchen. All these different areas really fleshed out how big the attraction was, and it gave you a pretty good idea as to where all the rooms were located, so that you kind of had a decent understanding of the mapping of the building. And the childlike environment is always a nice contrast to the bloody horror to create some really cool imagery. Now let me talk about the fight scenes. Ignoring my little complaint about the shaky cam, I thought the fights themselves were still fun and entertaining as hell, and I'm glad that each fight felt very different, with each character, as the janitor was able to kill them all in different ways. You know, he was curb stomping Gus, snapping Cammy's neck, tearing Artie's mouth wide open, and beheading Nighty. You know, each fight or attack felt very different, as they took place in different areas, and each animatronic had a different style of fighting. Personally, the most badass kill was when he ripped out Ozzy's spine like he was in a Mortal Kombat game. It was so satisfying to watch, and just seeing that imagery really kind of gave me exactly what I wanted from this film. The movie doesn't hold back on the blood, or I should say oil blood as well, because the animatronics, even though they bleed, they're not bleeding blood, they're bleeding oil. But the janitor is just constantly drenched in oil as he kills these animatronics, so much so that he constantly has to change his Willy's Wonderland shirt about 4 times, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, when I heard Nicolas Cage was fighting evil animatronics, the first image that came to my mind was his face drenched in their blood, kind of like he looked in Mandy, and it was so awesome to see that image brought to life here as well. There's just something awesome about a crazy and angry Nicolas Cage drenched in blood that makes life so much better. So that I was very happy to see just them go crazy with the oil blood. The music, the soundtrack of this film was perfect. There was some memorable songs, such as the very well-known birthday song and even the 6 Little Chickens song. It all felt very appropriately used. And there was one song that I felt was used perfectly for comedy effect, and that was when we got to see the janitor fight Cammy and Sarah to the song Head, Shoulders, Knees and Toes. I thought that was just done very well. But my favourite musical moment of the entire movie was it was perfectly used at the end, as the janitor walks out of Willy's Wonderland victorious while the song Freebird is playing. That is one of the best songs out there about a drifter, and to see that song saved till the very last scene was a real treat. I mean, overall, this film had a great soundtrack. And I'll give a quick shout out as well to the cinematographers, because there were some really awesome shots in this movie that was so enjoyable to look at. I can't list right now the moments off the top of my head, but I do remember loving quite a lot of shots in the movie. So, you know, good work on the cinematography. There was some awesome stuff to look at. Now the plot. The plot is simple and nicely easy to follow. I love that immediately, right at the beginning of the film, we just get straight into seeing Nicolas Cage riding in his car, bursting his tyres and arriving at Willy's Wonderland. I love it when films waste no time getting to the point, because that shows that this film knows exactly what we want as an audience and what we're here for. But once Nicolas Cage does spend the night cleaning up Willy's Wonderland, the film does start to become repetitive as he battles the evil animatronics. You know, he cleans, he takes a break, he fights a character, and pretty much continues to do that a lot for the rest of the film. Personally, I was fine with it, but I can see this aspect of the story maybe being an issue for some people, but this didn't bother me at all, because as I said, you'll enjoy the movie if you know what you're getting into, and seeing as how all I was expecting was non-stop battles, I do feel pretty satisfied with the pacing. Plus the variations of fighting styles from the animatronics, you know, and the locations within Willy's Wonderland really does help make each fight feel different enough. And there are some scenes in between that do focus on the teenagers and the sheriff from time to time to sort of break it up a little bit. But I think what saves the repetitive nature of Nicolas Cage's routine throughout the film is the fact that it's pretty much played as a joke, because no one else would behave this way. There's even one memorable moment in the movie where the janitor, he's about to save Liv from Cammy, but suddenly his alarm goes off for a break. And even in that life or death situation, he still chooses to go on his break. And this joke is just perfectly set up at the beginning when Tex, the owner of Willy's Wonderland, advises the janitor to pace himself and take breaks. So he really does take that advice very seriously. You know, watching the janitor do a night shift of cleaning and drinking energy drinks really does remind me of when I worked as a runner for a TV editing company, and once in a while I would have to work night shifts, cleaning all the edit suites and kitchens and stocking everything up ready for the morning. And watching this, it just reminded me of that job, because I would do the exact same thing of taking a scheduled break to grab a snack and pop open a can of Red Bull or Coke to get through the night. And it was just so funny to see some of the things in there that I could relate to, because you really do need to pace yourself. You know, a night shift can be brutal, especially if you didn't sleep well during the day before it. But, you know, overall, I thought the pacing was fine for me. I had a really good time. And the film does also explain the backstory of Willy's Wonderland and why the animatronics are killing people. It's basically very similar to the origins of Child's Play, where serial killers transfer their souls into the animatronics. And, you know, although it's what I expected, it was actually way creepier when you find out that these serial killers were actually staff members at Willy's Wonderland back in the day when it was open. So although I thought it was a predictable origin, it still made me feel like uncomfortable at the thought of, you know, what these serial killers were capable of in a children's attraction, you know, behind closed doors. So it was a surprise to me that although it was a predictable origin, it still creeped me out, and I didn't expect them to add that new element to something that I've seen before. So, you know, well done. Like, even though it's something we've seen, you managed to put a creepier twist on it. So I think that's great. And the movie ends on a perfect note as far as I'm concerned. I think the way the movie ends, or any movie ends, is way more important than how it starts, because at the end of the day, when I finish watching a film, the ending of the story is going to impact my feelings as I walk away from what I experienced. And I do think the ending is so solid. It just left me with a big smile on my face. You know, we see the janitor leave Willy's Wonderland like a badass to reunite with his car, having just taken out all the machines and still managed to clean up the attraction and keep his end of the deal. And of all the songs, as I mentioned previously, of all the songs he walks out to, it could not have been more perfect than the song Freebird. And he also takes the surviving girl, Liv, along with them, as they've pretty much built up a respect for each other by this point. And to top it all off, we get to see Cage drive into one last animatronic, Tito the Turtle. That final kill may have been one of the most satisfying kills in the movie, because it's visually clear, and I love that Tito is smashed to pieces, and even before that he has one last funny line before meeting his end. I mean, I really couldn't have asked for a more badass ending to this story. So, you know, you left me smiling. I think that is one of the most important elements when you're making a movie, is letting the ending have a real impact on your experience as you walk away. Also, I'm sure the question is going round after everyone has seen this movie, and that is, you know, I'm sure people will be asking, will there be a sequel to Willy's Wonderland? Well, you know, I've seen some interviews with Geo Parsons, and Geo Parsons is the creator and writer, and he said that, you know, should there be an opportunity to make a sequel, he does already have ideas in his head on where he would want to take the next chapter. You know, and I do think that this movie leaves itself somewhat open to a sequel, but I honestly have no idea how they're going to make a story that would be as good as this one already is. But, you know, Geo has, you know, written a really fun movie, so I have faith in him that he really does have, you know, some really creative ideas on where he could take a sequel. But, you know, who knows? We'll see. I mean, although Siren Sarah blew herself away in that car explosion at the end, we didn't actually see her get damaged in the aftermath. So I could definitely believe that she could still be out there, and it's through her that we lead into a second film somehow. I mean, maybe she'll rebuild the animatronics, or maybe she'll move on to find other serial killers willing to transfer their souls into new animatronics to join her. You know, personally, I would prefer this movie to stand on its own, as I don't really think it needs a sequel. But if a studio wants the same team of filmmakers to bring us a second installment, then, you know, Siren Sarah's survival would be the logical way to keep going in my mind. So even if I would only prefer to have this as a standalone movie, I'm totally supportive of them making more a sequel, because this is a really fun movie. And there have been movies that made sequels that I wasn't, too keen to see. But sometimes when I see a sequel, I actually realise that it was a sequel that we needed to get. For example, when they announced Toy Story 4, I was like, I don't know if Toy Story needs a fourth movie. But then when I watched the film, I actually thought, no, actually this feels right to have a fourth movie. So who knows? That could be the same with Willy's Wonderland. So I really do look forward to seeing what Geo Parsons does for his next project. Overall, this movie is a good time, and I'll be proud to add it to my DVD collection in April. Even with some of the small criticisms I had with the film, I just can't help but smile at it. It's a nice, short, 88-minute runtime, so it doesn't feel like it's dragging at all. And it's a film made to its purest vision without any interference from any studio executives, and I can't help but admire what this film has achieved. It was made on a low budget, and I believe in a very short space of time, so I actually really admire how amazingly fun this movie turned out, considering all the obstacles I imagine the filmmakers must have had to face. What they have done in the amount of time that they were given is impressive. And this film, this film may not be an Oscar-level masterpiece of art, but it is a masterpiece of dumb, fun entertainment where you can have a good time. And I'll happily take that instead any day. You can tell everyone involved in this film knew exactly what they were making and gave 100% commitment, because it shines throughout this movie. And, to hear the story of how the writer, Geo Parsons, started with no experience or contacts in the film industry, to making a short film with his friends, and then being given the opportunity to have a team expand it into a full feature film, is really inspiring to me. So hats off to you, Geo, and your team. You guys should be damn proud of what you've achieved, and I can only hope to be able to pull something like this off one day. Should you watch this film? Does it really matter what I say? I mean, we all know you're going to be intrigued to see Nicolas Cage fight demonic animatronics anyway, so just go watch it even if you're curious, and support a film that was made by passionate people. Honestly, it's a fun time, and I'm so glad that we got this in 2021, especially at the beginning, because it's been a rough year, and it was just nice to have a fun film to take our minds off, what's going on in the world. But yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thank you guys so much for listening to my thoughts. Let me know what you think of the movie. What did you love? Is there anything you maybe didn't like? Or, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. Also, if you're interested in some more Willy's Wonderland content on this channel, then please check out, if you haven't already, my stop motion recreation of the Willy's Wonderland teaser trailer and my Willy's Wonderland punch drink commercial. I will link those videos in the description below as well. They're currently, as of this recording, in my top 3 most popular videos of the entire channel, and that's all thanks to you guys who have been supporting me. I'm really lucky and grateful to have you be part of the CloudBoyVids channel, and it really does help me, help motivate me to keep going. I also want to thank Geo Parsons himself, as he was awesome enough to retweet those videos onto his official Twitter account and help get the videos some serious attention. So thank you very much, Geo. You're awesome. I still have some more ideas on some Willy's Wonderland videos that I still haven't seen anyone else attempt yet. So, if I'm going to make Willy's Wonderland videos, I do want to make stuff that no one else has thought to make. So, subscribe if you haven't already to make sure you don't miss those future videos. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're awesome. But for now, stay safe and take care, everyone.